Greetings and salutations, Vadoma here. I am back with the second installment in my discussion about my body, my physical changes in my transition so far, almost 5 months in. I'd left up on the topic of body hair. I talked about muscle. I talked about my voice changes, the changes in the size of my cock. So I'm going to flow on to a couple other topics here that are of consideration. Skin texture. That's something I hadn't thought about until very recently. If you have a preponderance of testosterone in your body, your skin actually is thicker. People with more of a larger estrogen base in their body have thinner, more delicate skin, but mine has actually gotten thicker and also oilier as well. As a result, I have also developed some acne on my back. My back knee has shown up on my shoulders and actually in the middle of my back, a little down the back. It was really, really bad for about a month and a half until recently. It seems to be subsiding a little bit. I've also been using an acne wash on my back and being very careful to wash my binder every day, just so the oil from my skin is not collecting and exacerbating this situation at all. So, you know, thicker skin, literally, which is stronger skin, but the acne, not necessarily a good side effect. But I'm going to deal with it because I'm essentially going through a second adolescence. And speaking of second adolescence, my sex drive. That was something that has taken a little bit of getting used to. In terms of my turn-ons, I've become a lot more visually oriented. I've really still primarily enjoy really well-written erotica, but I've been enjoying visual porn, whether it's just images or actual porn videos, a lot more than I used to. I also consider, in terms of my sexuality, I'm pansexual. I'm interested in people of all genders. Really, it's not your bits or your junk that really matters, but I'm more person-specific. But I have found myself attracted more to breasts recently. I've actually had some times where I've been talking to my wife, and she doesn't have the largest breasts, but they're just beautiful and wonderfully shaped. And, you know, if she's been walking around the house, you know, topless or something like that, I'm talking to her, I will periodically stop and be dumbfounded and just stare at her breasts and forget my train of thought. It was kind of disconcerting at first, but now I'm just going with it because I'm like, oh, boobies. And it's a good thing, and I'm dealing with it. My sex drive has been a lot higher as well. I've been wanting sex more frequently. I've really been enjoying getting my cock sucked a lot more as well. Oddly enough, I was never much into penetrative sex before I got on testosterone, or rather I was, but I felt very mixed about it. But now I actually find that I'm in a place where I enjoy being penetrated as much as I enjoy putting on a strap-on and penetrating my partner. That's been a new thing for me. I've really been enjoying my orgasms a lot more. They don't necessarily come as quickly or as easily because I'm still kind of figuring out how my sexual response works and how my genitals work now with this new balance of hormones in my body. But it's also been a hell of a lot of fun exploring that too. Oh, geez. So, sex drive. I have had a bit of a problem in the beginning, just really connecting to my partner, to my wife for a little bit, because I was very much coming from the place of, here's my sex drive, and I gotta get off, and I gotta get off now, and I'm like, well, wait a second. There's my partner here, who is a person who, with her blend of hormones right now, is primarily connecting to me on a very emotional and heart level. So if I'm focusing on our sexual experience as something that's very connecting, starting with a more sensual, foreplay-driven, intimate sort of thing, and then segueing into the really aggressive sex. That seems to be a brand of lovemaking that works really, really well for us too. And I've been able to cope with this sex drive, the desperate need for sex, I think because I've had a female hormone balance for the first 40 years of my life. So knowing what it's like and knowing what it is to be connected to your partner and want to feel that emotional connection. It took me a little bit, but then I'm like, oh yeah, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to do to be present for my partner. So I seem to be blending that element of my female and my male sides very well with the sex drive after about the first 2 to 3 months, so that's been working well. And apparently my wife is putting a hippo in the camera for some reason, because it's very important to my 5-month transition for people to know about this hippo. Why are you doing that?
Hi.
And this is Ash, as you know. So why are you here with your hippo?
Because you were talking about me.
I was
and
talking
I wanted to
about
introduce myself on your channel.
Well, everyone, this is my wife. Come in further.
Hello.
Atypical Ash. She actually has her own channel as well under the same name, where she talks about her transition and her spirituality and other topics that interest her as well.
Mm.
Is there anything that you particularly noticed about my transition, either physically, mentally, or emotionally, you wanted to share?
I've been listening to what you're saying, and I think that's pretty much everything. I mean, I know a lot of the things he said here, they seem almost like stereotypical reactions, you know, completely stereotypical gendered based, especially when you're talking about my reactions and connecting with me more on an emotional level with sex and things like that, but it's totally true. And, you know, that's just the way it's been for us and the way the hormones have affected us. Sometimes it's different with other people, but it's often a common thread among people who transition that, you know,
it's interesting how hormones really do have such an effect on your emotions and your state of mind. I didn't want to say that, but it really is true, because it makes it sound like, oh, men are like this and women are like this and this is the way it is.
Right, and that's not true, because I mean the way hormones work with people, even among cisgendered people, people who were born into the body that they really identify with and the gender that they identify with, there's a bell curve of variance in hormone levels there, and it accounts for a lot of the variance in personality.
And emotional states.
As well. And, of course, not everything is related to your hormones. With your personality, but I do think it has a lot to do with it.
It really does. We're all chemicals. We're all these different chemicals floating around in our bodies, so that will have an effect. I'm trying to think if there was anything else too that was particularly noticeable. Oh, one thing that people don't talk about a lot with sex, at least not that I've seen, is when you get on testosterone and you started out in life as being gendered female at birth, the walls of your vagina, the walls of your cunt actually start thinning out. And I did have a situation a little over a month ago where I did have some vigorous manual sex with a partner of mine, another trans guy. Some fisting. Vigorous manual sex. Yes, fisting. I was using a euphemism, bad me. And I tore. I actually did tear internally. And so I had to take it easy afterwards. So the trick of the matter is that I'm figuring out is I can't go as vigorously without using a lot of lube and a lot of care as well too. So that's something, another physical change you need to take into account. And
that's something common with cisgendered women who go through menopause.
Yes.
So.
Exactly.
Anyway, I'll leave you to it.
Thank you, darling. So I think that pretty much is most of the physical changes that I have seen. I think in terms of the emotional changes, one thing I will say is that I feel I'm more even-keeled overall. My emotional states are more stable. The emotions that I do have sometimes will ramp up very quickly, but also resolve quickly as well. So if I get angry, I'm angry, I have a little outburst, and it's done, and that's it. Instead of it building, 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 explosion, 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 bad, 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 bad emotions that stick around forever, which was never very comfortable for me. Now I can have my emotional outbursts, and they just kind of end and are resolved pretty quickly, which for me is a better state for me to be in. And it's actually decreased any problems with depression that I've had, just because the emotions don't linger. They do resolve pretty rapidly, which I've been enjoying. So I think those are pretty much it for my physical and emotional changes during the first 5 months of my transition. I may post more about transitional related concerns, in another month or so, if anything does seem to be different or deepening or resolving in some way. But I wanted to just thank everyone for tuning in to these particular videos discussing the transition, and have a great evening or a great day, depending on what time of day it is for you. And this is Vadoma signing off. Thank you so much. Bye-bye now.